so where I was before. So I grew up here in Newport area.
Okay.
And then had gone back east. Well, I was in school in Texas for a while. I played softball. So I was.
What school?
I went to UT Austin.
Okay.
Longhorn. So I was softball scholarship, and then transferred. I went to Columbia my last 2 years. I played softball there, but.
Wow.
And so for me, I grew up in a big Irish Catholic drinking family. That was always par for the course. And then I moved back to LA actually for law school.
Oh, okay.
And and it was really stressful. I come from a family of lawyers, so there was a high expectation, and I think I took a lot of that on myself. And so during law school, it was sort of I need a break from the high stress of everything. Go get a drink, But really, when it got bad for me was I was working as an attorney my first year out of law school, and then ended up hurting my back. And so as soon as I did that, they gave me bunch of really amazing painkillers, and suddenly I wasn't working. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I want to go back to work, but they're like, if you want to get paid, you have to go back to work. I think I thought I had a handle on it. I was in a lot of pain, so I was like, I'll work the day, and then I'll take my painkillers when I'm done with work. And I mean, slowly it was I'm taking them at noon, and then suddenly I'm taking them to get out of bed. And
that's
then,
pretty typical too of the willpower negotiation. Okay, I'll start here, and then anytime we start negotiating with ourselves, we always lose.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and it was funny because then it'd be just 30 minutes, and it just you realize slowly the power of choice just goes right out the window. And from the time of that first surgery, I ended up having multiple surgeries. I'm trying to think. 2 on my back, 2 on my neck, both my hips. And on the one hand, a normal person would say oh my gosh, that's awful. But there's that little voice in the back of my head that's sweet, this means more amazing drugs, time away from work. And by the end of it, I mean, I was so, deep in my addiction, needing it to function, that I finally, I couldn't work. I got to the point where I was just the act of even pretending I'm here, able to function as...
At that point, were people aware and actually approaching you, or was it kind of a thing of, not sure, don't talk?
It's funny, I think it was, and this is what almost killed me, was that they knew I was sick and had medical, I was in pain, I'd had all these surgeries, so I could kind of hide behind that, and people were like, oh, we get that you can't get out of bed, it's because, of this illness. I don't think anybody really put 2 and 2 together. At least because I left the job before it got bad into drugs that I was getting from not even my doctors. Right. But at that point, dealer. Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, I was so isolated. It was just me. And so that's, when I look back before I ended up in treatment, the last year, I mean, if it weren't for the fact, I realize now that it was, there was physical issues with the surgeries, but then there was the addiction, and then I suffered from a lot of mental health issues that hadn't been diagnosed. And so I really wanted to end it. You get to the point where it's I couldn't get out of bed without drugs, and then it was I don't want to go on, And I think, but for the fact I've got a loving family, I couldn't imagine doing that to them. But yet I didn't want to live, and I didn't have the, courage to end it myself. So I kind of looked at it as I would just get really reckless with it. So if I take all of these pills or drink this whole bottle and I don't wake up tomorrow, that would be a relief. Yeah. And so it just, I think it got progressively bad to the point I wasn't picking up the phone. I think at one point nobody could leave me a message, and then nobody was calling. You get to the point where nobody's even calling anymore.
Most people don't even know how to engage in that conversation, especially family with fear. Yeah. How was family throughout this process?
So I thought I was doing a good job of hiding that I was that bad, right?
I always think we're hiding it fantastic, and everyone else outside is looking and kind of really?
Yeah, and I think, and my parents are so loving, but they they knew how sick I was, but at that time, with the surgeries, I was also diagnosed with the neurological Lyme disease. So that also gave me, they were putting me on a lot of antibiotics, but then I was taking a bunch of other, pain pills, everything on top of that. But so my parents knew I was sick and that they were losing their daughter, but they didn't know.
There wasn't a correlation.
Yeah, and I think they recognized I was on all these pills, but they thought the doctor was, giving me these pills, but then they didn't know the extent of other stuff I was taking. And so looking back, I remember, finally having to have that conversation with them. They just broke down because they were like, we know we're losing you. And I would tell them, like, you try to make that pretense, like, no, I just need another doctor's appointment, or whatever excuses I would give them to get them off my back.
So how are you able to make that decision to approach something so difficult? Because most people don't get to that point where they're able to have that self-confrontation to ask for help.
Yeah, and so it's so funny. I mentioned I was an athlete in school, or back in college. And I remember at that point there wasn't, the friends were gone, it's like your dealer and that one friend that's shady that's, with you because you're sharing whatever you have or they're sharing with you. But I had one really good friend who knew I was kind of out of control, but, was still hanging out with me. And I remember, I think what it was is that I was getting so bad, like the physical dependence, like, not being able to go however long without, drugs. It was December of last year, and I remember thinking that come December, the money I had sort of saved up was going to be gone. I was losing my health insurance, so it was like all these pretenses of like, oh, I can keep managing this life. That I knew that was coming. I was feeling that stress. And then I remember, towards the end, I would go through, let's say I got a prescription filled for like 120 pills. Those were gone in 3 days. And so I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have it in me to go to the lengths to get them. And I remember thinking, I came to after like a 4-day blackout, thinking it was Thursday and it was Saturday. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So I was like, this reality of, a couple more times of this, I might not wake up. And I remember a friend reached out to me and said, do you want to go out drinking? And this is what I knew was bad. I was like, like I was so the anxiety, it had been a long time since I was out drinking for fun, like the thought of leaving the apartment, the thought of showering was beyond my ability. But I remember going to see, I know this sounds so silly, there was the boxing movie was out, Creed 2. Okay. And so she's like, how about a movie? I was like, all right, there was a theater where you could drink. So I was like, I took the last of the pills that I had, which is like Xanax, muscle relaxers. I went to the movie and I was watching this guy in the movie. It's just, it's like a, Rocky, where he's just getting his butt kicked, right? And you see him just all bruised, and then, he has to keep getting up and fighting. And there was, I don't know what, just something in me was like, I'm not ready to give up completely. And so it sort of like reminded me of those times as an athlete. Like I was like, when did I become such a wimp? Like I just had lost the fight, like the desire to live. And so it just sparked enough in me that I remember getting home and deciding I was gonna, I'm like, that's it. And I had said that's it so many times. And the next day, I remember I ended up, well, that was me. I remember I was going to symbolically hang on to one pill, to prove that was it. That didn't last, right? But then that was when it was a Sunday. That Monday I went to my first AA meeting. And so something clicked in realizing that I'm not the only person that is struggling like this, right? And because I had realized me trying to do this alone in my apartment is going to kill me. And so I kind of quit cold turkey, which I don't recommend because it was ugly. I was, all the things you go through when you withdraw. And I that first week alone up in LA, because I was still terrified to tell people I was an alcoholic and addict. The shame, exactly. And so what I thought in my crazy brain was I'll just get through this period of, that awful withdrawal and and then I'll be okay and I can just go on and people won't know.
And that's the part that we're really trying to do. There's a stigma, especially around addiction, where the mental picture is the heroin addict on the streets, panhandling, and they don't understand. And that's why I'm first of all, I'm so grateful that you're willing to openly share, because ex-college level athlete, scholarship, which means you kicked a lot of butt at what you did, lawyer, all this other stuff. And this is the part we're trying to help educate of look, it affects all of us.
Right.
It's not, there's no prejudice when it comes to addiction.
No, 100%.
And to help remove that shame, so when someone starts, even in the early stages, in the ideal world, we can help remove the shame. So a person goes, crap, I'm going down a hole I don't want to go down. Right. How do I stop it? Right. Because of that shame and judgment and all sorts of stuff. So I'm glad you hit on that.
Well, and it's funny, you just reminded me of this. In one of those first AA meetings I went to, it was up in LA, and I remember there was a woman there. I don't remember her name, but I'll always be grateful to her because she really kind of reached out her hand. And she had brought in 3 friends of hers who were still, one of the gentlemen, it was, I want to say, either it didn't matter what his drug of choice was, but he was still, using, but he definitely wanted to come into a meeting, living on the streets. I remember whatever the topic was, I think it was like a book study, and we're going around, and I just was a wreck and sharing kind of like for the first time, feeling like people, just getting all that stuff out and sobbing. And, I remember when it got to him, he looked at me like dead in the eye, and he was like, I was going to complain about, what was going on with me. He's like, but I wouldn't trade places with you for, all the money in the world. And it was that moment of like, we are no different. You know what I mean? Like, this disease will knock you on your, butt, no matter who you are. And to feel that kind of, that's what I think, like you said, it removed the stigma, the shame is like, I'm no different, no better, no less, but like, if we don't talk about this, like, it affects us all.
I'm a human being in pain.
Absolutely.
And this is how I'm currently coping, and I need help.
It was coming here, meeting Amy, meeting the people here, that I just felt like, okay, like, just like I did in that first aid meeting, like, oh, this is someone that like, I feel comfortable with immediately. He's not going to judge me like, oh, like it just didn't feel like a, I don't know what concept I had in my head, but it felt like coming to a home, and like, just from the location, like when I saw their room, I felt like I would be safe here. And
I love hearing that. I felt safe enough, and I don't know why we're made this way. I guess it's a good thing because God's perfect, so made us this way on purpose. Right. But when we feel safe is when we tend to really be able to exponentially grow. Oh. It's in that safety.
100%. And I think the thing is that it's the safety, and then, what I realize now looking back, so that, today it's been 6 months. If I look back at me then, I was still there's those frustrations. You're like, wait a minute, you're going to tell me, what time to be home, you're going to hang on to my meds. All those things that maybe initially were frustrations saved my life 100%. Because you start to think, okay, I'm going to some meetings, I'm doing this, like, once again, I got this, I'm good.
And we hear that so often. Actually, I just was speaking to a client yesterday who very similar of my words are, I don't want any accountability. I want to do what I want, when I want, how I want. Right. And I'm thinking, isn't that what got us all here?
Yes.
And at first he wasn't able to hear it, but I thought, he's an ex-athlete too, and I said, well, let me ask you this question. His game was football. Mm-hmm. I said, what if there were no rules in football?
Right.
And what would happen if guys just went out there and goes, oh, we used to play that, before I got into college sports, because people would get injured every single time.
Right.
I said, so what you're telling me is, if I have no rules or boundaries,
right,
I get hurt.
Right.
He said, yes. I said, are we able to use that mindset over here? And it was like this aha, this light bulb went off, kind of like, I never thought of it like that.
Right.
Because initially, I don't know why we bucked the system. I don't want rules.
Right.
I don't want to be held down and tied down. It's kind of like, well, what's really going on? Oh, for me, if I get to the core issue, it's a lack of, I don't feel I'm in control, and control's so big. And that's what it was for this gentleman. So as we walk through, just that little initial aha moment of making that connection, I'm kind of like, oh no, I actually do really like rules, so there is a way to keep score, so there is a way to play and have fun, and so I don't get hurt. And it's amazing how the whole mind rationalizes that stuff until we understand, gosh, rules are made to actually really set me up for success and to win.
Well, and I realized, like, even just like I couldn't adult, if you will, like, so just the idea of like getting up and making your bed, like those little things that you feel like suddenly productive, and then like you said, like to have somebody accountable, to do chores, to do those little things that, like, if you want self-esteem, you have to do esteemable acts. Yeah. And so at first it'd be like, I'm an adult, I'm gonna, like, don't you know who I am? You're gonna tell me what to do?
I have a library of many leather-bound books.
Oh my God,
smells of rich mahogany.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And so I think that it's teaching you that humility of, you need to learn how to do these things. And those, I look at that going forward, that will serve me the rest of my life. And I had been here, I want to say, a couple of weeks, and I had some good friends that had gone through treatment and were looking at sober living. But in their mind, they said, they were kind of I don't need sober living, we're, same thing.
Which is, that's the norm. Once we understand that, then we can actually not necessarily push back and resist, but go, oh, okay, that's a normal emotion, that's a normal thought process.
Right.
Thank you, mind. I'm still going to continue forward.
Absolutely. And this person had all the best intentions, but decided that they needed to still go home, was out of state, pack up, and then they were going to drive back out here as sober living. And he never made it back. He went home, overdosed, and so to me it was just this devastation to lose people, and that's the reality of this disease. But I'm like, that so easily could have been me if I had given into my natural instinct to be like, I just wanted to go to my apartment up in LA and pack up for a weekend, and thank God I didn't do that. And I think that in those early months, you're having all these thoughts, and not only to feel safe, but there was someone always here to talk to, whether it was I feel crummy, because I've got the flu, or, whatever's going on, or just I'm having all this anxiety and I feel like there's somebody that I can sit and talk to. The people here were incredible. That was, you didn't feel alone. And in the worst of my disease, it was me and alone in a, apartment, just completely disconnected from the rest of the world. And so it was kind of teaching me how to live amongst people and not feel alone.
It's one of the best basically descriptions of addiction I've ever heard. Is addiction is isolation. So the opposite is connection.
100%. And and thinking about this, and just trying to be grateful, because I think gratitude is something that will continue to save my life. But grateful for those, the accountability, the structure, the people, here in staff, but then also living with the other women that were in the house, because you feel a part of a community. And so it's you're, can help each other when needed, and reach out, learn to ask for help when you need it. And I think that was also really key. It's that, like you said, the connection, the opposite, and I think that is what's, so important, especially, I think for the rest of my life, hopefully, but, especially getting through those early days when you can't, they say my own mind is a scary place to be. So I need other people to, help me.
Yeah. And so kind of wrapping everything up, what's life like now?
Oh, God, it's pretty fantastic, and I feel very grateful for it. I am not back to being an attorney. I don't know what the future holds, but I, have I'm working at Starbucks, and I got another job at a boat company. So my days are pretty much, at this point, I've got 6 months, which seemed like an impossible feat. If where 6 minutes was impossible. I remember in those early days, watching the clock tick to midnight.
Still when you watch the clock.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I remember thinking okay, I just need to get through this day. And I remember when it would hit midnight, I wasn't sleeping. I would take a picture, be okay, that's one more day. And so now, just to be able to engage in life, so it's working. I still go to, sometimes 3 meetings a day, because that's what kind of centers me. But to be able to work, to now, it's not a big space, but I have my own space not too far from the beach. I've got a community of people that if I moved, and people volunteered to help me move. I was I never in a million years would I think that, I would have a network of true friends that, were there because they care about me, and people call me when, can count on me. The other day, I need something. I was I was misexcused. I would not be the person if you needed something to get done. Even with my family, they kind of rebuilding the trust. And I remember the other day, my brother needed someone to watch my nieces. And just the fact that, to start to rebuild those relationships. So I feel I always think happiness is something that comes and flows, but appreciating that joy and that serenity that they taught, that you hear about early on, and you're just that is a load of crap. I'm miserable. I feel like I'm gonna die. Yeah. And I find that that's true. And for me, it's being able to, work, help other people, because I got all that help, which, I am forever grateful for. But yeah, life today, and I always joke with people, if my life is just me working at Starbucks, making, whatever I make, I would be happy. Like, I am happy, because before the life I was living and was in such a rush to get back to was gonna kill me. Like, I wanted to die, and now it's just, I look forward, you know, good or bad, I like show up for life, and that is a blessing.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing your experience and for trusting us to be a safe place for you. And I'm just, I got to learn even more about you today, so thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I will be forever grateful.
So. Absolutely, thank you.